friends, Jerry Rosa here at the Rosa Stringworks Workshop. Trying to get caught up from my hiatus, about 3 months actually, that I didn't really do too much on instruments. And 2018 just won't let that happen. I'm not going to go into the list, but you would not believe how many things have broke since the first of the year here on this farm. Literally pretty much everything. And so I don't feel like I should be starting back on instruments yet because I am so far behind. I think I'm in front. You know, when you go around one of those round tracks, you know, everybody laps you. That's the way I feel. They've lapped me. Well, okay, enough of that sad story. Before we get into this video this morning on this banjo that we're about to look at, I just want to point you in the direction of Michael McCoy. That's his name. His channel is Real McCoy. And Michael has a sawmill and does some real nice work. Now he has a real sawmill. He doesn't have one of those toy band sawmills like I built. So I'd encourage you to check out Michael's channel. He seems like a real nice fella. He's struggling with cancer right now. And he's just going through a lot of issues. And so make him feel good. Go over there and give him some views and subscribe to his channel. Let's get into this video right here. It's a banjo. It is a Bishline Banjo. I'll give you a look at that peg head there, and if I can get the glare off of it where you can see it. That's it. I don't recall ever seeing a Bishline in the shop before. This must be a model Cimarron. It says right here on this plate, which you can't see, and again you probably can't see because of the shadow, so I'll dim the shadow out there, or the light I should say. It's a flathead banjo. It's heavy. It's a well-made banjo. The customer's got a number of issues with it, and by the way, this is repeat business, which I really like to see. You will recall a few videos back, I put a aluminum tone ring in a Mastertone, I believe it was. Got some flack over that, to be honest, but you know, that's what the customer wanted, and you know, he wanted to lighten it up, and so that's what we did. And he was very happy with the work, I might add, so therefore he sent me 2 more banjos to work on, this being the first one. As I say, when we're on stage and we're down to our last 2 songs, we're going to do one of them first. Well, this is the one. So here we go. Let's take a look at it. He's got a long list of issues here, and I'll just read them to you. The neck feels grainy, and I agree with him, it does. When you rub your hand up and down this neck, it's kind of an unfinished neck. It's got some minor finish on it, but it's you know, it's probably like been oiled or something. But the grain has raised, and you can feel that grain, especially up in here. So what I would like to do is, rather than put finish on here, which he kind of suggests, I would like to smooth it out a little bit more with some, you know, fine sandpaper, and then maybe oil it with some linseed oil, see how that feels. That way your hand won't stick to it. It'll just be slick as, you know, as it can be, and it makes it real nice and smooth and fast to play. So that's what I'm planning to do, and that won't cost him much money either that way. He says the frets and the nut are very sharp, and I agree with him there. This, on the front edge of this, it's just like a razor. That thing is just real sharp. And these frets are all squared off, perpendicular to the fretboard. And they are just, you know, because of that, the edges are just really sharp. And they just grab your hand and you can feel them. So we can fix all that. He wants me to put on the compensated bridge that he enclosed, and we'll do that. He wants all of the chrome polished, and he wants it waxed and everything, and we can do all that too. The tuning pegs seem loose, and I agree with him. They are loose. They look like they're decent quality to me, so I don't see any point in replacing them. I just think they just need tightening, and we can tighten them up. That's not a problem. And he wants the new strings, of course. Now here's a fairly big task that he was asking about, and he would like this armrest, which is metal. He would like it changed to wood. And he enclosed this, and this is a, I don't know, for lack of a better term, a cheap-made armrest in my opinion. It's got these 2 little metal clips that just clip up underneath this rim. You know, it just looks cheap and looks like a problem waiting to happen to me. This one, on the other hand, and I'll show you if you're not familiar with banjos, this one is connected with these posts that go all the way down through the rim, the flange. And so it's tied down real good and tight, and it's not going to go anywhere. So if I can find a way to change out this metal for this wood on top of what he's already got, then we'll do that. I don't know if I can do that or not. It's actually connected to these back here with a clamp, and if I can find a way to attach that same kind of clamp on here where I can clamp it to these posts, then we might try that. But anyway, that's down the road, and we'll figure that out as we get to it. Lastly, he wants me to check, you know, the setup in terms of intonation and the truss rod and all that kind of stuff, and we'll do all of that, of course, when we set it back up. He wants a good low action, and we'll make that happen. For those of you who are less initiated on these banjos, this resonator, this back part here is called the resonator. It comes off by taking off these 4 thumb screws here on the edges. I always call these the 5-string galvanized mechanical gadget because pretty much everything on them is bolted on. I always joke on stage and say, as long as you've got every tool, hand tool that Sears Craftsman ever made, you too can work on a banjo, you know. So that's kind of the way it works. The 5-string galvanized mechanical gadget. And then we should be able to pop the resonator off there. And there it is. And if you want to see, that's what holds those screws go into those little bolts there, and that's what holds the resonator on. There's a very pretty back on this. It's burled maple is what I would call that. Well, that's what I'd call it. It may be walnut. It may be burled walnut. I thought it was maple and stained, but it may be walnut. Hard to tell because the inside's painted black. But anyway, that's what it looks like. I'm sure it's just a veneer. I'd say it is walnut now that I see it a little bit, take a little better look at it. It's burled walnut. Okay, and right here, one of these little hooks is not attached to the flange, which I don't think that's too big a deal. I'll probably go ahead and hook it back up. I think I can buff this out without taking all of those off of there. If I had to take every one of those off of there, that just adds a lot of time and a lot of work to the buffing process here, and just going to cost the customer a lot more money. I think we can clean it up and buff it out well enough without taking it further apart. So I'm going to go ahead and hook this hook that's loose right here, and I'm going to hook that back on. So we got it good and snug down. Now these things here, I'm going to just make sure they're all snug tight, roughly the same tension. The thing is, when you start tightening them, then other ones loosen. So I'm just going to check them all, going all the way around here, just making sure that all of these are snug tight. Yeah. Like I said, when you tighten one, you'll loosen others. It's just the way it is. So you got to be careful about it. Plus, just the least amount of turning on these really tightens the head up a lot. That feels pretty good. I think they're all pretty snug. I think in order to buff this out, rather than have this thing flopping around loose, which it is without the strings on it, I think I'm just going to go ahead and take it off, because otherwise it's just going to be flopping around, scratching up things and making noise and driving me crazy. So. And we'll put those parts back together so we don't lose them. Looking at the neck angle, I'd say the neck angle is pretty close to what we want. You know, you can use various height bridges on these. These look like they're 1/2 inch. They might be 5/8. Let's just see what they measure out to. Yeah, the one that's on there is 5/8, and the new one, let's see if it's 5/8 also. Yeah, it's 5/8 also. And I was going to say that the neck, the angle looks pretty steep compared to this flat top, but the strings were already a little bit high, and so at 5/8, you know, we probably end up cutting some of the feet, you know, the bottom of the feet off of this one here to make it sit down a little bit lower. So I'm not going to adjust the neck angle. I think it's going to be just about perfect for this new compensated bridge. I think before I do the chrome, I'm going to do the chrome just last before we start stringing it up. I think I'm going to work on this neck because the neck is rough, as we mentioned. I even see a little bit of a finish smudge right here. I don't know what that is. It's just almost looks like a drop of finish just got dropped there or something. It appears to be a walnut neck, if I'm not mistaken. That's what it looks like. But anyway, we're going to sand it down lightly and then touch it up with some linseed oil. That'll be the perfect fix, I think, for this neck. I've got 400 sandpaper here, and we're going to start with that. I think 400 is fine for this. Yeah, it already feels slick, boy. And whatever that is, and this is that non-stick sandpaper, but whatever that finish coating that's on there, it's sticking to this sandpaper. Ordinarily, this sandpaper, nothing sticks to it, but whatever that coating is, it's sticking. Well, that definitely used up another sheet. Whatever that stuff is, it's gummy, I'll say that. But I think we got her off of there and got her, I think we got her slicked up really good. As a matter of fact, it's so slick, I'm not sure, and because of that, whatever that coating is, I'm not sure that the linseed oil will do it any good at all. So I'm thinking we might be done. It feels slicker than glass. I'm telling you, there's almost no friction on that at all. It's just unbelievably smooth and unbelievably slick. So whatever that stuff is, I like it. I don't know why the neck was rough, but it's not rough now. And man, I mean, I wish you could feel it. Honestly, you couldn't find a glass top, tabletop that would be slicker than that. Okay, so we're good. And it looks good too. I don't really think it needs any additional work or finish or anything. It looks fine. So let's move on to the next step. One of my viewers recommended that we try this on the metal. It's Flitz Polish. Flitz. It says for metal, plastic, and fiberglass restores paint to. It's got a green seal that says Eco Safe. So let's try a little bit of this. And I've never ever used it. I've never even opened the bottle. As a matter of fact, I think it's still sealed, as you can see. So this is my very first attempt at using it. Never used it anywhere before. Because of that, and since I don't know what to expect, I'm only going to use it here right where the tail piece is going to cover this all up, so in case it does something I'm not expecting, we won't have a disaster. So we're just going to try a little bit right in this area here first, just to see what it looks like and what it feels like. I didn't read any directions. I figure I've polished enough things in my life, I ought to know how to polish something by now. Okay, you can see that it's turned that pretty black there. Now I'll take the dry part of the rag here and wipe it off and see what it looks like and feels like. Well, it looks nice, and as far as I can tell, it's just about as good as you could ever hope for. Matter of fact, that's very, very nice. I'm sure that semi-chrome polish would work just fine too, although there is quite a bit of grit in this, so you know, it might possibly dull the luster just a little bit with this. I'm not sure. I don't think it would though. This seems to work really, really well, so I figure I'll just go ahead and use it. And we'll just go ahead and polish up this whole rim. I'm not gonna make you sit here and watch me polish this, so I'll bring you back when we're finished with that. Well, I will say my first experience with this Flitz polish is pretty good. I think it did a nice job. I did the shortcut way. I polished it in place. That's about $15 worth of polishing versus about $120 worth of polishing if I would have taken this completely apart and put it back together. Because I don't think I could take it completely apart and put it back together and get it right in less than 2 hours. So I think the customer will understand if you can see a little tiny bit of smudge in a few places where you can't really get to very good. But overall, I think it looks pretty darn nice to do it by hand in place like it is. So I'm going to call that good. We didn't polish out the tail piece, so let's just go ahead and polish that out. Yeah, it does a nice job. That is some pretty good stuff, whatever that is. Yeah, it looks nice. We're going to work on these frets now and clean that up because they are definitely sharp on the edges. Looking down the fretboard, it looks pretty darn flat. I'm going to say it's fine in terms of the truss rod right now. When we get the strings on it, we'll look at the underbow and see if we can detect an underbow there. And if there is much of an underbow, well, we'll fix that with the truss rod. But right now, let's work on these frets. Okay, they feel better, but to be perfectly honest, there's still a little bit of a dragginess across this, especially this upper edge here. So I'm going to use this to round them off a little bit more. Now, well, I'm going to eat my words and say that actually did attach pretty well. So I went ahead and put his wooden armrest on there. I attached it with just like it was designed, with the little clamps that go up underneath the flange there of the top hoop or whatever you want to call that. Anyway, they clamp underneath this top ledge, and it clamped on there pretty well. I think it's going to be fine. It seems solid, so I eat my words and say that it's actually made fairly well. And that's what he wanted, so now he has it. While the strings are off, it is the perfect time to oil this fretboard, so we're going to do that. Might even just go ahead and smear a little bit on that neck, although I don't think the neck's going to take any of the oil because I think there's some kind of a wax or something on that neck. I decided to go ahead and try a little bit of this linseed oil on the back. It sure won't hurt it, I don't think. Pretty confident he's going to like that a lot. And finally, before we put her all back together, we're going to go with the Renaissance wax, and we're going to wax up this resonator. This stuff is a nice protective finish. What I really like about it is it goes on easy and it comes off easy, where so many waxes are so hard to get off once you get them on. Okay, I think that's good enough. We're ready to start reassembling. So the tailpiece goes down through this little deal, and we have to come in from underneath with this nut and tighten it up. There's a minor problem with this felt getting pulled down when the neck goes in, so I'm going to re-glue this real quick. Well, I glued back that felt around the neck there, and that was easy with just a little bit of super glue. And I went ahead and screwed those back onto the resonator, so it's all back together physically. Now we just got to string her up and do a little quick setup on it. I've got the strings on it just very loose right now. They're not even near tension. And I just thought I'd show the less initiated again for a banjo, how they go on. They're a little different. Keep in mind, this tailpiece can swing back and forth, so you want to make sure you get it centered. And it is centered there. And then the strings hook on the little tabs back here, go up over the top, and then they go underneath this piece here. Now the center string has to go through this hole. There's no place to put it, so it goes through the hole. And if you can look at it closely there, you can see how they actually go on these kinds of tail pieces. I've seen them come in many times and they're not correctly set up here, so that's why I thought I'd point that out. We've got her up to pitch. I've set the intonation pretty close on the bottom D string and this D string. Now what we're looking at is the action, and a hair high on the 90 here, and the 80 here would be quite a bit high. So we're, I'm going to say we're about, based on what I'm seeing there, about 30 thousandths high probably. So let's see, there's 100 still is a little bit high, so if we had, here's 120, that's right on the money. Okay, this is measuring 120 thousandths. I'd like to get it down to 80 thousandths. So that's 40 thousandths high, so that means we need to take 80 thousandths off of this side of the foot. This side here, not so much. We're right at 100 here, right on the money. And I'd just like to drop that 20, so I mean 10 thousandths here. So we'll drop it 20 here. So 20 to 80 is what we're dropping it. Actually, I only took about 70 thousandths off of this side because it would have cut the foot down too much. So I cut off as much as I could on this side. I cut off about 20 thousandths on this side. The action is really pretty good. It's a good snug 90 here, and it's about 90 here on this side also. So I would like to get this just a little lower. I mean, I could cut the groove in the top up here a little lower on these strings, or I could take some off the top here and cut the grooves a little lower. But I don't think it's that significant. I think it's pretty close. You know, it sounds good. I think the action's, you know, very, very tolerable right where it's at. One thing that's bothering me is this D string slot that's here is not very deep, and that string is going to pop out of there, I can tell. So I'm going to take that out of there a little bit, and of course this is going to mess with the action a tiny amount, but we've got plenty to spare, so I'm not worried about that. I'm just going to take my little saw here and just very lightly open that groove up a little bit. I believe that looks better. It's sitting about halfway down in there now. It was literally sitting right on top. So I think that's much better. The last thing we need to do on this now is to tighten up the tuning keys because they do still feel loose. In case you're not familiar, these tuning keys on, you know, these peg type instruments are friction based. Literally hold the key where it's at and tighten the screw just a little bit, and that will adjust the friction quite a bit. That one there was pretty loose, so I'm going to snug it up a little bit more. Okay, so I've tightened those all up a little bit. You don't have to tighten them too much. Now this peg here is not friction, but I'm just checking to make sure it's snug so that we don't lose the peg off of there. This one here is geared. These may be geared inside of here too, but they are a friction-based deal. In this case, I don't think these are geared, but I might be wrong. All right, so let's retune it one more time now. Let's see. When I picked it up to just kind of chord it there a little bit and play it just a tiny bit, I noticed that the action up here is still pretty darn high. And so we're going to do some work up at this end now and try to bring it down. Yeah, there's 18 thousandths, and I would say we've got a extra 5 or 10 thousandths there. And yeah, I would say 5 or 10 thousandths is it's high. So we're going to knock these down just a little bit more. Sounds real good. I think the action's real good now. And I think we can play her. As I've said, I don't play banjo. I can sort of pluck it a little bit with a flat pick. But it's got a nice sound. It's decent. Seems solid. Everything feels good on it. The action's good. It looks real nice now, all cleaned up and fixed up. So I think we're in good shape. This neck just feels, honestly, as slick as any neck I've ever felt in my life. So I think he's going to love the neck. So hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for taking a look. Tell your friends about the channel. Give me a thumbs up. How about that? Thank you.